returning guest and someone I truly adore, and I'm just glad that she's back. And it's Marlene Sharp.
Thank you so much for having me back on your show. It's a pleasure.
And we are going to talk about something I am now passionate about because of you. Because the last time you told me like, oh, watch this thing, oh, watch that thing, and I'm like, okay, I sat down, I watched a few. But we are going to talk about true crime, and I have been a true crime lover. I've always been one, but this year or last year, this and last year, I was like fully diving headfirst into the genre. So I want to ask you, like, since we talked, which was a year ago, which is crazy, but what have you watched?
1 year. Okay.
Yes. What have you watched? And give me a full breakdown and list.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so much because it's not just watching for me, it's listening. So I listen to true crime podcasts as much as possible. You'd be surprised how much you can multitask during the day with just listening. And so whenever I'm eating or cleaning or walking my dog or anything like that, I'm listening to true crime. True crime is probably 90% of what I listen to in terms of podcasts, and viewing, like streaming and that type of thing. It's a good chunk of that too. So one thing that's on my mind, because I just finished the last episode and it's so good, is The Jinx on HBO. And it's The Jinx Part 2. So are you familiar with that one, Benu?
I've heard it, but I have not watched it yet.
Oh, well, you get ready, because brace yourself, because this will take over your life, I promise, for at least several weeks. Because this is a case that has been going since the initial crime happened in 1980. And it's only in the last couple of years that there was a major development in terms of justice. So, and there have been 2 HBO docuseries. So there was The Jinx Part 1 and The Jinx Part 2, which just wrapped. Like, there were 6 episodes, I think. And the last one, they HBO aired them like in the, not all in one drop. It was like 1 episode per week for 6 weeks. So the last one just dropped a week ago. Oh, my dog Blanche is really passionate about The Jinx, so you're gonna hear her like commenting. So anyway, and then there's also, besides the Jinx Part 1 and Part 2, the Part 1 came out I think in 2015 or 2016, and then, but prior to The Jinx, there was a movie called All Good Things that starred Kirsten Dunst and Ryan Gosling, and that was in theaters in 2010, I think. And it's about the same case, but the filmmaker who made All Good Things then went on to do these 2 docuseries about the same case, The Jinx Part 1 and The Jinx Part 2. So so it's a lot of stuff that you can watch, probably like 12 or so docuseries episodes if you count both seasons. And then there is the scripted, somewhat fictionalized version of early parts of the story, because like I said, it's been going since 1980. So there are a lot of developments, a lot of multiple dead bodies, and so forth. So do you know anything about the story of Robert Durst, the infamous figure who is the subject of The Jinx?
I have heard, but I have not watched Jinx or the movie with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, wow. Wow, I can't wait for you to see it. We'll have to do a follow-up episode after you consume all the materials, all the materials on Robert Durst. And then you can even, if you really want to get into it, you can just search various podcasts and various, I guess you could say they're like docu-style TV series that'll have like separate episodes just about the case during the years. But do you want me to give you an overview or anything like that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so Robert Durst is no longer with us. He actually died about 2 years ago, and but he died at around age 78 or 79. But he was born in New York City a long time ago to one of the wealthiest families in New York City. I think the Durst family, is still one of the wealthiest families in the world, maybe. Definitely one of the wealthiest families in real estate. So going back generations, the Durst family bought a lot of commercial property in New York City, and so they were super wealthy. And so Robert was the oldest of 4 children, I think, 4 or 5 children. It was either 4 or 5, but he was the oldest. And when he was 7 years old, his mother committed suicide, and she jumped off the roof of their house. And supposedly, Robert claims that he witnessed that, and there was unrest in the family that led up to that incident. So he, in his words, that set him on a bad path for the rest of his life. Now his brothers and his sister have a slightly different story. They say that Robert did not witness the mother committing suicide, and that he was a bully from the day that he was born, and he would torment his brothers and sisters even when they were children. That he was just born with a mean streak. So anyway, so that happened when he was a little kid. Fast forward to when he was an adult, when he was in his 30s, he married a woman named Kathy Durst, and he was in his 30s. She was only 18 when they met, and she was a hairdresser, and they met and they married rather quickly. And she was very ambitious, and so her goal was to be a doctor. So she, to her credit, she went to nursing school, and then she went to medical school, and in between that, she and Robert started a grocery store business together. But she was a hard worker. She wasn't just somebody who married Robert Durst for his money. She of course, she was young and probably naive, but anyhow, they had an abusive relationship. It was documented, kind of like O.J. Simpson and Nicole Simpson. Like, she had gone to the hospital several times, and there were witnesses to the domestic violence. And when she was 29 years old, and within months of graduating from medical school, she disappeared. And that, of course, caused a police investigation. Her body was never found, and no one was ever charged with her murder. Yeah. Well. Anyway, at that time, so the case went cold, basically. But every now and then there'd be little whispers of like, "Hey, did Robert do it?" But he also had this very wealthy family, and they were able to control the media, plant stories, and protect his image. Meanwhile, he didn't really have a job. He had this giant trust fund, and he was able to he was working for the family business for a while, but then he just kind of dropped out of sight and traveled and just kind of tried to live under the radar. But every now and then the case would rear its ugly head in New York, and some new prosecutor would come into office and say that they were going to reopen the case and try to find out what happened. And of course, there were whispers that Robert had something to do with it. So Robert had a friend in Los Angeles who was a journalist and a screenwriter and her name was Susan Berman. And so in the year 2000, there was an ambitious district attorney, a woman district attorney named Jeanine Pirro, who's now a journalist herself, and she's a Fox News pundit, I believe. But at that time, she was district attorney of New York, and she really made this crusade that she was going to find out what happened to Kathy Durst. And so Robert Durst's friend, Susan Berman, who lived in Los Angeles, who was a screenwriter, she took it upon herself to be Robert's publicist at this time. And so she started speaking on behalf of him in public and saying like, oh, Robert's innocent and he doesn't want to talk about this, that, and the other. And then months after she started being his spokesperson, she turned up dead in Beverly Hills. She was shot in the head. And again, it was a case that went cold. And there were some whisperings that Robert had something to do with it, but no one could ever really prove that Robert was in Los Angeles at that time. Anyway, so then those two murders were covered from time to time in the media, and they caught the attention of this filmmaker named Andrew Jarecki. And Andrew Jarecki decided to write a script based on Robert Durst, the disgraced millionaire, billionaire with these two mysterious deaths in his past. And then right after Susan Berman was so Andrew Jarecki is like working on this film and like following the story, and it took him a while to develop his script because the movie didn't come out till 2010, and this thing with Susan Berman happened in 2000. So then Robert Durst decided, I know this is a crazy convoluted story.
No, it's not, because I just realized I watched actually what you told me, but I don't really remember the name.
Oh, yeah, it's a famous case. Yeah, it's a famous case. So
it
is very like
documentary on it. I don't know what it was called, but I when you said, I was like, when you were talking, I was like, wait a minute, I actually watched it.
Yeah. And there's been so many twists and turns and developments over the last 44 years. It's like half of Robert Durst's lifetime he was causing trouble and on the run and whatever. But yeah, so just I'll try to speed it up. So let's see. So Susan Berman is murdered, and then Robert Durst wanted to. It wasn't so much that he was on the run, because nobody was really well, I mean, there was some finger pointing, but there was no evidence to tie him to either Susan, no direct evidence anyway. And the evidence that was collected was all sketchy, circumstantial, whatever. So Robert Durst decided it was in his best interest to move to Galveston, Texas, and create this alternate personality of a mute woman. And so he started living life as this mute woman in Galveston, Texas, and he became friends or frenemies with another elderly man who lived in the same apartment complex. And it was a very like rundown apartment complex. Like he wasn't living large. He was trying to live under the radar. So it was like a low rent kind of situation, and his neighbors were all very like humble, not wealthy people at all. So he became friends with this neighbor named Morris Black, and Morris Black turns up dead. And okay. And poor Morris Black not only did he turn up dead, but he was chopped up into little pieces and dumped in Galveston Bay, and was found in pieces and parts, and but it was discovered fairly quickly that Robert Durst had something to do with it, because in the garbage bags where Robert Durst's body parts were, the police found old newspapers, and they had the address of Robert Durst on the newspapers. And so it was pretty easy for the police to just show up at Robert Durst's place and start questioning him. So sure enough, Robert Durst was apprehended for that murder. And there was a trial, and by golly, if Robert Durst didn't get off, he was acquitted. He was acquitted of the murder, although he totally admitted to doing it, but he said that he did it in self-defense. He claimed that Morris Black had broken into Robert Durst's apartment and held him at gunpoint, and they struggled over the gun. The gun went off, and Robert Durst thought it was a good idea to chop him up into little pieces and dump him in the bay, because Robert Durst thought, oh, well, nobody will believe me that I'm innocent because I'm already under suspicion for Kathy's death or disappearance and Susan's death. So I better dispose of this body so I don't get in trouble. So that was his claim. The jury believed him. He was convicted of a few minor charges like abuse of a corpse, or I don't know, carrying a concealed weapon without a permit or something. So he did serve some prison time for that, but it was not like as if he was convicted of murder. So then anyway, so let's see, how did the story go? At some point, the movie, Andrew Jarecki's movie, came out in 2010, and Robert Durst had been, he served his jail time for the Morris Black murder, and then after that, I think he went back to Galveston and was just trying to live his life. He only served a few years for the various things that he did to Morris Black. And then Andrew Jarecki's movie came out in 2010, and then Robert Durst loved it. He saw the movie and he loved it, and he contacted the filmmaker, who's Andrew Jarecki, and he said, hey, you really need me to do the bonus content on your DVD, because I'm a great interview subject and this movie is all about me. So how about it? So Andrew Jarecki was considerably and understandably shocked, and he said, okay. I mean, who wouldn't want that opportunity to have a probable murderer volunteer to do the bonus content on your DVD? So they did it, and Andrew interviewed Robert Durst over the course of a few days. He got all these interviews, and he decided that, wow, this is great bonus content. I know, Blanche, is so exciting. And he got all this great content, but he was like, this is way more than bonus for the DVD. This is the makings of a docuseries. So he used some of it for the bonus content for the DVD, and the rest of it he started working on this docuseries, which became the first Jinx, the first season of the Jinx. And the reason why the Jinx came out maybe 5 years later on HBO, but the reason why it became so famous is that Robert Durst accidentally confessed to all of the murders on camera when he was still mic'd up for all of his interviews, and he went to the bathroom and he started talking to himself, which he did often, and the filmmakers, like Andrew Jarecki and his team, didn't catch it. They had all this interview stuff, but it took them years to go through it all, and so they didn't even discover till maybe a year into reviewing all the footage that this had happened. And so anyway, it was, of course, and there are other revelations that come out in the first Jinx, the first season of the Jinx. But anyway, that whole thing with the interviews that led to the jinx. And then the filmmakers also started cooperating with the LAPD because they were collecting essentially what was evidence to charge Robert Durst with Susan Berman's murder in Los Angeles. So eventually Robert Durst was charged with the murder of Susan Berman, and the trial took place during COVID. And Robert Durst was convicted of the only murder that he really was convicted of was Susan Berman, supposedly because she knew what he had done to his wife. He had told her years ago, and she knew, and she I think Robert believed that she was going to report him. She would cooperate with authorities. So that's why he killed her, so that she couldn't be a witness. And so Robert Durst was finally convicted of one murder. And within 1 month of his conviction, he dropped dead. So he never served any time. Well, he did serve some time, but it wasn't really the comeuppance for killing 3 people that he should have gotten. So that's the jinx and the story of Robert Durst. The end.
I just remembered that where I watched it. It was like on this it's like on this German network crime. It's like this channel always plays like the crime thingies and true crime thingies, and the program was called Criminal Detective, and they talked about that. And also I've heard it somewhere else. Oh, I think it was a Netflix documentary or something. I don't remember, but I guess I've like watched so many true crimes because I don't know, it's like a drug. It's like you want more.
Yes. It is. And then when there's a case that really captures your attention, it becomes even more of an obsession. I want to learn and watch everything about the jinx. I never get tired of it. And I call it the jinx because that was the first jinx was the way well, actually, I take that back. I think I saw the movie All Good Things first, and then I saw the jinx, and then I became obsessed. So now I will listen to any podcast episode or special episode of a Discovery ID true crime show or anything that's about Robert Durst. I'm just so fascinated with the whole case.
That's so like neurodivergent coded.
And look what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing my Autism in Entertainment shirt. Woohoo! That's another cause that is close to my heart, but really doesn't have anything to do with true crime. But anyway, I like to support my causes and my cases.
I mean, I was that way when I watched. Gosh, what's the name of it? It's like about that guy who killed his wife and kids, but he denied that he did that.
Was it a recent case or an old?
No, it's like it's on Netflix. I don't remember the name, but or that
John List? Was it the John List murders? It did happen in the U.S.?
Yeah. Like he killed his wife and then he killed his babies and then he was like, I didn't kill them. They went missing and they called the cops and then they came over and then they discovered and then he said, well, I did it because he said it was one. I think the first one was accidental. No, I think the babies were accidental, but his wife, the death of his wife, that was intentional because he said, well, I thought she was cheating.
Oh.
And also I also was that way when I watched the documentary American Nightmare, I think it is. It's on Netflix.
Is that about the Murdoch case? in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's like
no. American Nightmare, is that the one about the married couple and they're kidnapped? And
yeah, but they're not kidnapped, and
yeah, people think that they were lying, but then because it was such a crazy case. Yes, actually, a friend of mine wrote the book with that couple. I can't remember the couple's name, but the author who I know, who I've worked with, her name is Nicole Wisensee-Egan. And so when I was working with a company called Rainshine Entertainment, I was adapting source material for podcasts. And so the company, we optioned some content, some stories from Nikki Egan, because she used to be a reporter for People magazine, and she had covered all kinds of crazy cases for People magazine. And then in the last few years, she's been writing true crime books. She oftentimes will partner with the victims of a crime, and so she'll kind of help them through that process. And she also wrote a book about the Cosby, all the allegations against Bill Cosby. And then her next book after Chasing Cosby was the book is called Victim F. And so that story of Victim F was the basis of American Tragedy?
It's American Nightmare.
American Nightmare. Yes, that's right. That's right. So I knew the story. Nikki had told me the story, and of course it happened. I live in Los Angeles, and it was a big news story in Southern California when the case happened, like 10 years ago or whatever. So I remember hearing about it on. I remember when the authorities were going on TV saying that the wife made it all up and they used precious resources of the Bay Area police or whatever, to perpetrate this hoax. And then it was big news in Southern California because the wife is from Orange County, which is just south of Los Angeles. So it was big news here. And then I worked with Nikki Egan. I wasn't working on that particular case, but I was working with Nikki, and Nikki is somebody who you would love to talk to all day long, every day, because she's covered so many crime cases. She's done a lot of other reporting too, but she really does specialize in true crime. And so I love to ask her stuff about Cosby, as well as this Victim F case. So yeah, that was a great docuseries, American Nightmare. I enjoyed it.
I think another one was like what is it called? It's called I always butcher this name, but it's called Lover. I think Lover Stalker.
Yes, I've seen it. Yes, yes.
So I was like, I was in front of my TV. I was like shocked. I was like, what?
I know. That is such a crazy. Crazy doesn't even begin to describe it.
Yeah, it's an understatement. Crazy is an understatement.
Yes. That woman was the killer was just diabolical. And the fact that she was able to she was a con artist and a killer all wrapped in one. And it was kind of I guess it was just gratifying to her. Like, it wasn't as if she was getting money out of it. I mean, she was a con artist because she was making people think that she was the deceased woman, like by posing as her through emails and texts and doing it like to the boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, and then I think she was even communicating with the mother of the victim too.
Yeah, that part was like, what's like you? It's like I get jealousy, but this is something else. It's not even enviness. It's something else. Like I'm still shocked.
And even the son, the child of the victim. Remember that, Blanche? Yeah, my dog is looking at me. She remembers because she's seen all. If I've seen these shows, then she's seen them and heard them too. And that is really going way beyond to communicate and try to fool a victim's child into thinking that you're his mother on the other end of these texts and emails, and like leading this child to believe. And for years she did it. Like, you would think, okay, she's just trying to cover her tracks. Okay, maybe keep up the ruse for just 2 or 3 months, maybe, or I don't know what's a reasonable amount of time to keep up a ruse like that.
I don't know either. I'm not that crazy.
Right, but the fact that she did it for years, she burned down her own house and killed her pets. Insanity, really. That is nothing but mental illness. And it's sad that she operated this way without any treatment or supervision, because someone in their right mind would not. How would you even come up with a plan like that? And how could it be gratifying?
I think that's the fascinating part, because us normal humans wouldn't do that.
Yeah, or at least give up.
It is not
at some point. But to hold on to that, to hold on to a grudge, just to harbor those feelings, okay, I could understand. You're angry that someone broke up with you, and you carry that resentment. But to act on it in such extreme ways for such a long time, and she probably would have continued had she not been apprehended. And then the thing that was really weird, because I had heard this story on various podcasts before, so I was familiar with the story.
Mm-hmm.
But one new thing that came up in the documentary that I didn't know was that she had that personal connection to the police department that was investigating her. Like, I think it was another boyfriend. She was living with one of the cops who ended up investigating her. And then it was his coworker who's on the autism spectrum, the guy who would only drink shakes. Like, he didn't ever eat food. Like, he was just a shake drinker, and he just worked all the time. And he was the one who made that connection between the text that she was sending and the guy, the cop's VPN, I guess it was his internet connection. He was like, oh my God, it's my coworker is the culprit. But no, it wasn't his coworker, it was the coworker's girlfriend. But how weird that it was more than a coincidence, but it was
like, at first when I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, this is like interesting. And then I think towards like the second act of the documentary, I was eating, and I like put the food down. I was like, okay, let me watch it. And then at the end, I like stood there, and I was like,
you really have to pay attention, because there's so much going on.
Yeah, and that's why I watched it twice. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yes. I could see watching it twice. I would have been, if all I had seen was the documentary, I would have been confused. I was grateful that I had listened to at least a couple of podcast episodes. I feel like maybe I even listened to a full podcast where an entire season was about that case, but I can't remember, because I listen to thousands of podcasts and they all get mixed up in my head. The cases, I can usually keep the cases straight, but then I can't remember which show necessarily went with which case. So, but yeah, that was very, very good. What
I
have you
think.
seen lately that you like?
Oh yeah, I was about to say that.
Oh,
I would
sorry.
say it's okay. I would. Oh my god, what I haven't seen. I've watched the program on Netflix about this boarding school / cult thingy. Then I've also watched the Dance with the Devil, the TikTok documentary / cult
Okay.
documentary. And I've also watched Baby Reindeer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also have watched American Nightmare. Then what's the name of the famous hotel in Los Angeles where you shouldn't go?
Oh, the Cecil Hotel?
Yeah, that one.
Yes, that's really good.
Something else. Oh, and Lover, Stalker, that one.
Yes.
But I think one of the most traumatizing was NEXUIM, the one about NEXUIM.
Oh, yes. I find that really difficult to listen to. I have avoided things about NEXIUM. I haven't seen that documentary. It's
I have
just
that
so
traumatized
disturbing.
me.
Yes,
It's
no doubt. No doubt. Especially for women, it's just horrible to hear how a man manipulated women into turning on their own. Like, and it reminded me, well, it's an extreme case, I think, of workplace bullying. Like, workplace bullying is something that has affected me a lot personally. And this is like the next level of workplace bullying. And it's so disturbing. It feels like work when I listen to it. So it hits too close to home. So I can't really, I haven't reached the point where I can deal with it in depth. But yeah.
I also enjoyed is it a docuseries? I don't know, but it's like how to become a cult leader, which was narrated by Peter Dinklage, which I love that guy so much. And so he talked about a lot of cult leaders, and some of them were crazy, and some of them were crazier. And but like speaking of NEXIUM, is like it's like this one image it's just haunted me is like when they realize the branding is his name turned upside down. I was like, ugh, like I'm having goosebumps right now. It's like so fucking crazy. It's like, how can you be this like manipulated that you are allowing yourself to get branded by your cult leader, and then you realize years later that it's his initials.
Yeah. Just the branding itself is horrible. Horrible. But that just shows you the power of mind control. And there's one case that is so fascinating to me, and it's I listened to the podcast. There was also an Apple TV series based on it, but I didn't.
Is it Escaping Twin Flames?
Oh no, but I do. I know that
that one was also good.
I've heard a podcast about that case, but I haven't seen the docuseries. But the case that I'm talking about, or the podcast, is called The Shrink Next Door. And I believe that the Apple TV series is the same thing.
What's his face? Gosh, there's this famous actor who plays him, the Shrink Next Door.
It's Paul Rudd and Will Ferrell play the two main characters. But I only watched the first episode of the Apple TV series, and it was fine. But I had listened to the podcast first, and there were some major important things about that case that were left out of the scripted version, and so I just couldn't watch it beyond the first episode. But the real story is incredible. The reason why it's called The Shrink Next Door is that there's a character that's totally missing from the Will Ferrell Paul Rudd version, and in my opinion, he's the most important character. He's the narrator, and he is a reporter. His name is Joe Nocera, and it's his story. So what happened was he was the one who lived next to the psychiatrist. So that's why it's called The Shrink Next Door. And so he thought that this beautiful mansion in the Hamptons belonged to this psychiatrist. And he, for years, knew this. They weren't close friends, but he had gone to dinner at their house, and he and his wife thought they were kind of, the psychiatrist and his wife were a little weird, but they lived near them, and they were friendly. And there was a groundskeeper on the grounds of this mansion who would come over to Joe Nocera's house, and like, if mail was accidentally delivered, let's say from one house to the other, he would come and say, "Oh, we got a piece of your mail," or "Oh, Dr. Ike, I think was his name. Dr. Ike would like to invite you to this party or to dinner," or just, he was kind of like the messenger, but he lived on the premises, and he was always gardening or landscaping or whatever. Well, Joe Nocera, the reporter, discovered that the house actually belonged to the guy that he thought was the groundskeeper. That was Marty Markowitz, I think is his name. And the psychiatrist took over his whole life and essentially enslaved this guy. Like, he got control of his bank account. He took over his house. He took over his business. He had the family was in some kind of textile or fashion manufacturing business. Everything was then transferred into the name of the psychiatrist. And Marty was the man who these things belonged to, was living as his servant. It was like slavery. And it went on for like 30 plus years, maybe 40 years. And it was only when Marty was like in his 60s or maybe even 70s that it was all undone, partially with the help of Joe Nocera, the reporter. But that character was completely cut out of the Apple TV show. So you get a sense of the relationship between Marty and Dr. Ike. But like, to me, the most important thing was that the thing wouldn't have been unraveled if it wasn't for the reporter who lived next door. So, yeah, I highly recommend the podcast, The Shrink Next Door, because it really, I think Joe Nocera is so important to the telling of that story.
I mean, you only have watched one episode, so
yeah, just one.
I would say watch the whole thing, because this, like, the psychiatrist, I can't talk. The Jesus Christ. This psychological figure, he actually did, like, slowly but surely took over that life of this other person. Yeah, just watch the whole thing, because it was really good. And Will Ferrell, he was really good. Hold on, I have to plug my laptop because it's saying it's on 20%. Yeah?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
I actually need to sign off now. So don't
Okay.
worry about your laptop. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I do need to cut it short. Although we have been on for, it looks like 45 minutes. So you should have a decent episode there.
Yeah, I do. Anyways,
That's
thank
good.
you so much.
Yes, thank you. I can't wait till the episode comes out, and let me know, and I'll promote it and everything. And
Yeah, it's coming out on Sunday.
oh, wow, that's fast. Okay, great.
That's
Great.
But my goal is Sunday or Monday. We'll see.
Okay, yeah. Well, take your time, make it great, and I can't wait to promote it and to listen.
So yeah, I wish you a great. What is it now? Evening? No, no. It's
morning.
yeah. I wish you a
Plenty
great morning.
Plenty to do.
And
10:30.
I'm looking forward to catching up with you once I watch everything that you suggested.
We'll do another episode on catch up on all the new stuff.
Yes. Anyways.
All right. Well, take care. Thank you. And sorry that I was so late today.
It's okay.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
You too. Thank you. Bye.